Hey, it's Kendra and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I made a floating shelf for above mine and Alex's bed. It was pretty cheap and relatively easy. I'm really glad I was able to make one rather than buy one because they are pretty expensive. That said, I do understand why they're expensive. It didn't take long, but it was a lot of measuring and cutting and everything. But before we get into this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel down below for more videos like these and stay up to date with my channel. But without further ado, let's get right into it.
So basically for this floating shelf, we're going to be making an outer shell and a frame that the shell just slides onto. The outer shell will have 5 pieces, the top that we're measuring out here, the bottom, the 2 sides, and then the front piece. We first cut the top and the bottom out of this 6x10 piece, and then the sides are really easy. We just measured out smaller pieces with the excess that was left. And then for the front, we actually used a piece of the back frame that'll fit perfectly in, so we don't have to do a super long cut because we don't have the biggest saw because we are in an apartment, so we're working with what we have. The frame took a lot of measuring and math because it's not going to be as long as the main shell. You want it to be smaller, of course, so it fits into the shell. So we measured like 2 or 3 times before we did the cuts, and then we have 4 pegs that will stick out and support the outer shell because this is going above our heads and we don't want anything to fall, of course, while we're sleeping. And we also have a small dog, so we wanted to make sure that we were being super safe and the shelf would have ample support. And after we did all of our cutting, we sanded down the edges just really quickly. This isn't the final sanding, just to make sure all of the cuts would be even so it will all screw together really nicely. And to screw it all together, we started with the frame, and yes, I did split the end of the wood. I'm sure my dad will yell at me, and my mom. I don't know how to prevent this, really. I think it was just because we were too close to the edge, but overall, it turned out totally fine, so just act like this did not happen. And yes, there is a second split, a split on each side, so at least we're even here. So I did the 2 ends first, and then I measured out about 1 foot between all of the pegs, and I went ahead and screwed in the middle pieces. And now moving on to our outer shell. We didn't have any clamps, so Alex's hands acted as our clamps. And here's that front piece sliding in perfectly because we measured so many times before we cut. We were really proud of this moment. We'll say for the outer shells, be careful where you're putting your screws in because as you can see on these edges, there are about 3 screws that are near each other. So as long as your screws aren't too long, you should be totally fine. It turned out really well, but just be careful. If you have long screws, make sure you're not putting them all in the same spot because they will run into each other. We found the best way to make this the most stable is to put screws in on the side and then also support the middle with a screw. Our board was slightly warped, so putting the middle in really helped. I did sand down the frame a little bit so it fit into the outer shelf just a little bit better. And I also sanded the edges so nothing would be sharp. I'll list the stain down below. I really love how this color turned out. It ended up matching my other floating shelves that I had gotten from Target earlier in the year. And then I let that dry overnight. Hanging this guy up was really easy. We just centered it over a headboard and screwed it straight into the wall. However, like I mentioned earlier, we do live in an apartment and it ended up being really loud. Alex said that he could probably do it better and quieter, and then he realized it was hard, so we switched back to me screwing it into the wall. We just did 3 screws, 2 on the outside, 1 in the center, and it ended up being really secure. So we slid on the outer shell and it stayed really well. That said, we're not going to be putting anything super heavy on this since we are sleeping under this, so we just put 3 plants on there for now and we'll see how that holds up. But here's how it turned out. I really love this shelf. I think it turned out super cute.
Alright, well that is how you make a floating shelf. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, let me know in the comments down below, and if you end up making your own, make sure to tag me on Instagram. I will check it out there, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!